Good afternoon and welcome back to your afternoon 5-State Farm Report. Danielle Drotzman, your host here for 570 WNAX. Want to first take a quick moment to thank our sponsors, DeSmet Farm Mutual Insurance, Forage Co-op, and Total Auctions and Real Estate for bringing you the afternoon 5-State Farm Report. Well, with that, in our first segment, we heard from Amanda Bachmann. She is the SDSU Extension Urban Entomology Field Specialist, and we were talking about pollinators and how they are so important to agriculture and the industry as a whole. We didn't hear all from that interview, so we'll hear her closing comments from our conversation together.
Oh man, there is so much on pollinators. We could fill the entire hour, literally. But for folks that are into bees, if you're looking, honeybees, obviously loads of resources. Also, University of Minnesota has a bee lab, which has a lot of phenomenal resources for honeybee keepers. But if you're looking to get into some more of the native bees, or maybe you're just really into bumblebees because they're big and cute and fuzzy and just sort of very charismatic, there is a community science program for the South Dakota Great Plains region called the Great Plains Bumblebee Atlas, and that has a lot of fantastic resources on bumblebees, how to find them, how to identify them, because bumblebees we have about 25 species in South Dakota, which is actually a ton sort of compared to surrounding states. So we have a lot of bumblebee diversity, and we don't know as much about them as we know about honeybees, because obviously we manage honeybees like livestock. We, are taking care of them over the winter. We're keeping track of their health, but bumblebees are harder to sort of survey like that because their nests are going to be underground, maybe not in places that we can find them easily. And the Bumblebee Atlas helps us because folks survey for bumblebees. They tell us, sort of what bumblebees they're finding during those surveys, and that gives us a sense of the diversity and abundance in the state, and they're kind of like an indicator set of species for, the health of the rest of our solitary bees in South Dakota. And I'll also plug for folks that if you are finding yourself like sort of more bee curious and you want to learn more about maybe insects in general, not just pollinators, we've got 2 great volunteer programs within SDSU Extension. We have our Master Gardener program, which a bunch of communities around the state have Master Gardener clubs, and learning about insects is part of being a Master Gardener. But if you're somebody who just likes spending time, in your garden and you want to learn more about it, the Master Gardener training program is fantastic for that, and that class is usually from like April to June or July every year. So keep an eye out for the 2027 registration. And then for if you're somebody who's maybe getting into insects and nature and birds and maybe outside of the garden arena, we also have the South Dakota Volunteer Naturalist program. And that class is usually from March through May every year. And we work a lot with Game Fish and Parks as one of our partner agencies. But that class teaches you sort of all of the ologies of South Dakota, from geology through, herpetology and entomology, and is another great way to connect with other South Dakotans and connect with nature and pollinators.
All right. Again, if you ever have any questions or just want to learn more about pollinators in general, Amanda would be a great person to reach out to, so you can just find her on SDSU Extension's website. With that, we'll check in with Jerry Volesky. He is a Nebraska Range and Forage Systems Specialist. I know, some people might not have as much grazing and stuff, this year just because of that drought across Nebraska. But, sometimes people do plant some early spring forage that may be grazable here soon. So I guess any tips to producers who are maybe thinking about grazing those fields and tips to get the most out of them?
Well, that's right. Yeah, we did see here in Nebraska, in most cases this was under irrigation or under pivots, but a lot of things like oats or spring triticale or spring barley were planted typically back in April, and those are certainly ready for grazing right now. And so we do see a lot of producers that have those, making use of those through grazing. in some cases, producers, will hay those. And when it comes to haying of those spring forages they planted, that typically won't occur till the latter part of June, when those forages are, beginning to start having some seed heads emerge. Now, some key things with when we're grazing those forages, so we want to make sure that we do a good job and efficiently graze those. So we do suggest on those annual forages to do some rotational grazing if possible, and that'll just make for a more efficient harvest of that forage you planted, and probably put some irrigation water on.
Absolutely. And I guess now is also kind of the time to start thinking about summer annual forages too, if you're going to plant those. So I guess if maybe we were looking to graze or hay, I guess what could we plant here?
Sure. So yeah, the season for summer annuals or warm season annual forages typically begins, the planting time begins in late May, and it can carry through the summer months all the way up into early August. But so if there's a number of different choices out there, so if we are certainly planning to be grazing some of these summer annual forages, we might select things like Sudan grass. Pearl millet is also another one that is very suitable for grazing. But if we want to maybe hay some of these annual forages, then the things like sorghum Sudan hybrid, of straightforward sorghum or cane, foxtail millet or proso millet, they also are probably a little bit more suitable for haying rather than the grazing. So that's important. Depending on what the needs or the plan is for that forage, we can better select the forage that we would want to plant.
Yeah, and also, sometimes you can get silage out of these crops too, or there's specific things you can plant for silage.
Oh, that's right. With the silage, the forage sorghum is probably the best choice for that, and it's kind of a dual purpose one, either hay or silage.
And again, that's just an update from Jerry Volesky, Nebraska Extension Range and Forage Systems Specialist. I have more to that interview, so we'll maybe hear more from Jerry here later on throughout the week. So make sure to stay tuned. So with that, we'll take a quick break. We will take a look at your local weather, and then we'll round out the hour today with your cash grain market. So make sure to stay tuned to your big friend in the Midwest, 570 WNAX. I'm Danielle Drotzman.